we have the presentation today with Sherry Hartz, that you know her. She's going to be talking about rewiring your brain. And Sherry started with hypnosis in 1991. She studied at the Denver School of Hypnosis, and she taught at the American Academy of Hypnotherapy, Coaching, and hypnosis. And she also teaches communication skills and public speaking in different colleges and universities. She's actually the CAP treasurer, and her work is focusing on helping clients change beliefs, behaviors to improve their quality of life. So Sherry, we're happy to have you here.
Hey guys. So what I've done is I'm kind of putting this together and I realize and I'm starting to hear this idea of rewiring the brain more commonly in the culture so that we know that the consciousness is raising around this particular topic. I learned about it when I was listening to Joe Dispenza talk, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I kind of want to take a moment just to talk about CAP. This is an important organization. It was very legislatively oriented in the past, just because we were trying to maintain our rights as unlicensed or registered psychotherapists. We keep changing our names. And I do have some links there to the uh, website. So if you guys want to go grab those, that would be cool. Um, and then there is a place there to make donations. So if you're not a member yet and you would like to make a donation to the group, that would be great. If you are a member and you haven't renewed, we did change the rate of our membership to 65. It used to be 95. So because we're not doing a lot of the legislative work, we wanted to decrease the price and make it a little bit more available for people, because we were changing the function to being a little bit more educational. I did want to let you guys know that we are recording this. This does get posted on YouTube and it is turned into a blog. If you don't really want to be on camera, then it would be a good idea for you to maybe have your camera off or just use chat if you're concerned about that. So hopefully Mariana is watching the chat for me. I can't even see my chat. Mariana, can you see the chat?
No, because now it took over the
Full screen. Okay,
the
wait.
presentation, but you can remove yourself from the camera if that's something that you would like to do. Okay, if you don't want to be on camera, please.
Okay. Yep. There we go. All right. I think what I want to talk about is what is neuroplasticity. I'm going to talk through an example of kind of how I've applied this in the past. We're going to talk about a cognitive behavioral technique. So I actually have multiple ones, but we're going to be practicing with one just so we have an opportunity. And then we're going to do a little group practice. And then I'm going to talk about a 3-day challenge that I have going on. So what is neuroplasticity? I think that there was the old statement, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And that's the idea that you can't really learn more when you get older, and that's actually just not true. I think it's our brain's ability to modify and change and adapt that makes us human and allows us to be able to integrate and be able to learn new things and do new things in the world. Uh, I think about both of my parents. My dad's here. Hi, Dad. But both of my parents continued to get their education. My mom was working on her bachelor's degree when she passed away, and my dad is constantly learning. So I come from an environment with a lot of education people, so I understand the value of that, and it's always been part of my life. What happens with neuroplasticity is that we start to form new neural connections. And we've done that since we've been very young. I think the idea that that we're not able to learn was just an old, archaic idea. And yeah, so this becomes really important. I like this idea, and I found out it was related to the Hebbian theory by Donald Hebb back in 1949, and he talked about neurons that fire together, wire together. And what he's saying is that when we do activities and we live our life and we do things, if we do things repeatedly over and over again, then things have a tendency to link together. And so if I do something and they can't be done right at the same time. I need to do this activity and then I follow it with this activity. If I continue to do that over and over again, then those two things are going to be connected in our brains. If we think the same thoughts and do the same things, are those pathways in our brain end up being very kind of entrenched and end up going the same direction over and over again. And there was this belief that, like, oh, those affirmations don't really work. Well, affirmations actually do support you and do help. What happens is we need to create new pathways, and it is kind of fighting against the stream, the current of the stream, because we've been going the same direction over and over again. And if you're going to create a new link or a new pathway, you're going to have to do a little bit of work to get it to go in a different way. So the brain actually you can create new connections and new pathways. The blood, the energy, all that stuff has to flow a different way. And as you start to do that, that other pathway, if it's not being fed anymore, will start to die off. So if you have some negative thoughts, you have negative beliefs, things that you need to shift and change, you can do that, but you have to be a little bit intentional about how you get it done. So I use a lot of cognitive behavioral stuff in order to make those changes. I use a lot of repetition in order to make those changes. As a hypnotist, I can tell you that a lot of times when we make changes, they can be very, very fast. But what I'm doing here is we're really working and focusing on making shifts and changes to help support people in making and creating positive changes in their life. So, um, how does neuroplasticity happen? It happens because of our learning and experiences. I think too of physical changes. If when you have damage to certain parts of the brain, someone might have a stroke or they have something that happens in their brain, the brain's able to adapt and change and find new pathways in order to make those shifts. So it's really interesting to see how the brain's going to function. The back of our brain, actually, I have my little brain model here. The back of our brain is called the occipital lobe, back here in the back. So back here where the brainstem is. Back here in the back of our brain, this is called the occipital lobe, and it's associated with the eyesight. But what they found out is that when people are blind, one might think, oh, that part of the brain just isn't used, but that's actually not true. What happens is that that part of the brain is mapped on with other things that are related. Turns out the tongue is one of the areas that the occipital lobe will actually remap onto and be used for a different purpose. So we have all kinds of examples of how our brains function. So if someone has a stroke, they might have to learn another way of doing something because the way that they did it over and over again is damaged. But you can teach the brain to learn to do that behavior again. It's just going to have to learn a new pathway to get it done. So our brain is constantly learning and adapting and giving us the opportunity to make those shifts. Uh, Environment and lifestyle will also make those changes for us as well. If we happen to be in an environment where there's lots of stimulation and lots of information and lots of learning, then we're probably going to be engaged and our brain's going to be constantly shifting and changing and creating new pathways. Mindfulness, and that's supposed to be meditation and not medication. But maybe medication might make those changes to the neuroplasticity as well. But I was actually thinking of meditation. I think it might have done a little spell correct for me. And just daily practices. And I love this idea of the growth mindset. So there's a woman named Carol Dweck. And as a teacher, I became really fascinated in listening to her process But Carol Dweck is known for this idea of growth versus fixed mindset. And the growth mindset is something that allows us to understand that our brain is able to take in new information, and we may not be good at it initially, but we learn it later. I love the example of when a child is learning to walk. People don't go, oh, you know what? You're just not going to be a walker, kid. You can't, you keep getting up and you keep falling down, and clearly you're just not going to be a walker. But what we know is that that kid keeps trying and trying and trying until they get it right, because most of the things that we're going to have to do to get better at life is we're going to have to practice and get it in order for us to be better at it. So the growth mindset is this idea that we're able to manage and learn new information. In an education environment, a lot of students will say, I'm just not good at math. Math is just not my thing. What's really true is that maybe you didn't have the best math teachers, and so you didn't learn math well, or you just didn't practice it enough, and you need to practice it more in order to be better at it. There's this old belief that women aren't as good at math as men, and it turns out that's a fallacy. It's not true. They've done research on it, and they've done a lot of interesting research where they tried different combinations, where they told students, hey, we've modified this test for women so that you guys will have a slightly different test, but it's modified just to fit you, and they don't give them anything different. They give them the exact same test that they give the guys. And because they have this belief that it's been modified for them, that they do better on the test. It's a shame, but it is reality, and it happens to be a lot of the belief systems that people have. And if you believe something, you're going to act like that's true and continue to reinforce that particular behavior. So the growth mindset's really important in terms of understanding and building new ideas. Okay. So I wanted to talk about one of these because we're going to practice with one of these cognitive behavioral techniques. And I wanted to talk about this because of how I became a teacher at the college level. So I was working as a server. That's how I made my way through my college career. And once I finished my degree, I was working in a call center. I was working for Dish Network. And I became a trainer. And the trainer position there, you don't have to have any special education. There was nothing special about what I had. So my master's degree was really not important there, outside of the fact that, I mean, I had it, but it wasn't like recognized as being anything different. And I was working in my position, and I said to somebody, I said, oh, you know what? I'm so comfortable here. I can't imagine me leaving. I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to continue doing this job because I'm comfortable. And it wasn't even 4 months later that they came by and they said, we're going to have to shift some of you guys out of this training position. I was a trainer, corporate trainer, and we're going to do it based on certain numbers. And I thought, I thought, oh my God, I just said that I'm not going to leave unless I'm kind of forced out. And then this comes up. And of course, I was one of the people that got pushed out of that position, and they put me in the position as a coach. And I thought, oh my God, I've been dropped into Hades. This is horrible. I would sit there for 8 hours and take escalated phone calls, and I wasn't managing people. I wasn't working with my agents to help make them better because I was just taking escalated calls all day. And I thought, oh my God, this is a nightmare. This is horrible. And they saw that I was struggling, and my training department kind of pulled me back in and left me as a coach over there. But in the meantime, I thought, well, what do I really want to do? I thought I really want to be a college professor. That's really what I want to do. And you can do that with a master's degree. So I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be a college professor. So what I did is I visualized myself being a college professor. And what I would randomly do is I would randomly celebrate. I would do like a little woo, and uh, jump around and celebrate the fact that I had my position. And I was imagining myself being in that position. Like, what does that look like? Because I was so unhappy I was really unhappy in the position that I was in. And I really, really wanted to get into something where I felt like I was making a difference, because I really wasn't making a difference taking escalated phone calls. Anyone could have done that. And it was not a fun thing to do. So really kept working on that, and it took me a while. I was applying for positions and teaching. Once you get in as an educator, then it's easy for you to move around and get other positions as an educator. But that first one, you kind of have to work to get. So I was trying to work to get that first position. And so yes, I really focused in on getting that. And I did the weirdest interview for a job position I've ever done. They asked me these really weird questions, and I went in and I had to do a presentation. That part wasn't so weird. It was just the whole interview process and how that whole thing happened. But the good news was I got a job, and I was scared because it wasn't a full-time job. And I'm like, well, how am I going to pay my bills? Well, then they decided to hire me on as an associate dean for graphic design and general studies, and I ended up being hired full time. Now things shifted and changed, and of course I didn't really realize how much grading was involved, or I might not have thought it was such a great idea to be a college professor, because the grading is a little bit like a lot. But I love the teaching part, and working with the students and helping the students make a difference in their life, knowing that we're making changes generationally, because as I'm teaching that one student, a lot of these guys are first generation college students. Some of them are first generation graduating from college. They get to be the hand down to reach up and pull the next generation up and help the next generation educate, get their education. And to me, education is the equalizer. If someone didn't have a great upbringing, or they're their first generation, but they get an education, then they have an opportunity to have a job that pays more money, where they get to do what they really want to do, and they get to change the trajectory of their family because they get their education. So I really love being a teacher. I think it's really valuable. Um, I don't necessarily want to do it to the degree I'm doing it now. Sometimes I'm teaching 8 or 9 classes just to survive, and I don't really want to live my life that way. So, yeah, so there's that shift in and understanding that. And of course, the more classes you teach, the more grading you get. So it's not a great model for living life. But I wanted to walk through this and this idea of cognitive behavioral techniques. And in my 3-day challenge, I have 6 different techniques I have listed in there. One's called behavioral activation, which is the one we're going to practice today. Another one's called body scan. Another one's cognitive restructuring, cultivating internal locus of control, a neuroplasticity journal, and reframing past events. So we're going to talk through that, but I wanted just to stop for a second and see if you guys had any questions based on what I've talked about so far. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. You guys are good? All right, cool. So let's talk through this idea of behavioral activation. It's kind of what I did. This is more around kind of enjoyable activities and doing those kinds of things, but this would be helpful if somebody's kind of going through depression, um, or having sadness, and maybe wants to create a better quality of life. You want to identify enjoyable activities. In my case, I wanted to get out of my Hades job. If you guys, yeah, if you didn't know what Hades is, it's just a bad place. So the idea of being in a better situation where I was using my education, where I was making a difference, where I was teaching at Dish Network, but I wasn't teaching anymore. That position was no longer my position. I was a coach on the floor instead, taking escalated phone calls. And so really wanting to get out of that situation into something that was more positive, which to me was education, teaching. So you pick an activity that you think is enjoyable, and then you schedule it. Make sure that it's on your calendar. So if you're not having a lot of joy in your life, what are those things that are fun for you? Pick some of those out so that you can create them. Schedule them, Create realistic goals about how many times you can accomplish this. Monitor your mood or emotion, check in, see how you're doing. There are some cool tests. There's a Burns depression anxiety scale. There's other ones that you can use. I do use them in some of my classes, so I do have some in some of the future classes that I have in my little pipeline. But really there's tools out there that can help you manage this as well. Monitor your mood and emotion, positive body interactions. So I want to make sure that I'm feeling good, that I'm creating positiveness in my body. I told you guys about my celebrations. I would go and I would randomly go, woo, and run through my house cheering like, I got this job. I got it. And just how it would feel to have that job be accomplished. And then review and adjust. So review and adjust what that looks like. If you guys want to click on this right here, it should take you to a document that gives you the steps also listed out here. So it should be like a PDF of it coming from my little OneDrive. So there's your behavioral activation steps. It's giving you a little bit more detail under each one of those. So you guys are welcome to grab that. And I want to give you guys a chance to practice this. And then if you guys click right here on this previous slide, I'm not sure, I think this is like slide 9. Right there is the overview of the steps, and it will give you this detailed version of it right here. And I just want you guys to talk it through. Figure out what might be the enjoyable activity. What might it look like when you schedule it? How often can you schedule it? That would work for you. And then how would you check in with your emotions? How would you check in with how you feel? Do you look at yourself on a daily basis and say, how am I feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm at an 8. Can I take that up to a 9? Or I'm at a 6. Can I take that up to a 7? And then check in with your body, maybe celebrate, feel good, enjoy that, and figure out what it might look like to adjust, or what areas that you might feel like you might need to adjust. You guys got that piece? Okay. So what I'd like to do is put you guys into a couple of breakout rooms and give you an opportunity to chat. If you don't feel comfortable going into the breakout rooms, that's okay. You can just stay with me. How did it go?
It went good. Where's David? There he is. Okay.
So would you, so we were talking in here about some, okay, am I sharing? Okay. About dancing. What did you guys come up with?
Well, David was talking. Let's let him talk for a minute. Where is he? I don't see him.
I can see him. He's there.
Oh.
Let's see. I'm sorry. I don't hear very well. So, I mean, it's hard for me to, what, what did you ask and what did you respond, Bridget?
I was just saying you were talking more about reflecting. I thought you might want to go ahead and discuss that.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I don't want to
So
scream.
David, she was asking you to share what you learned. So was there something in particular that was sticking out for you
That's
in
good.
terms of what the discussion that you two had?
Well, I think Bridget asked, if I did things to improve my mood and my feelings. And I, I started saying some things, and then Bridget was saying, yeah, people avoid their fear. And then I was asking Bridget, how do you help people face their fear? She was saying that because I think that, well, for myself, you talk about neuroplasticity. I worked through an issue in my life, and I felt like I gained 25% more, mental capacity just like that. I mean, I no longer had all of this conflict working in the background to make me feel like I was okay. And I suspect that people have tons and tons of issues that they're using their brain to control, so they don't have to deal with the fear of these issues. It's belief systems, it's all kinds of things that I do to feel safe rather than dealing with the fear. And I, from my own experience, uh, working through my own issues, I mean, my brain is so much more freed up and, so much more capable of presenting a thought and a concept or even having one. And I hear of people experiencing cognitive decline. And I wonder how much of this incredible brain work, it's really hard on a person's brain to keep all these issues working in the background. I stay busy to avoid depression, that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I think it causes stroke. I just, once a person has a stroke, yeah, they can certainly rewire their brain, but the real problem is not rewiring your brain, it's dealing with your fear, I think. At least I see that as a huge part of the problem. And
I think fear is probably a big motivator for a lot of people in a lot of situations, because the idea of not knowing what's coming, just being, and we liked our comforts. I mean, I know I do. I like to be comfortable, and I don't necessarily want to have to step outside of what feels safe to me. So I definitely understand. Yeah.
I like the exercise. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
These are things I enjoy doing. So, yeah. And it makes you stop and think and schedule, which is important to stay on track. So, yes, I love it. And
Being intentional.
yes, yeah, we think we can do it in our head all the time, and we can't. We need to put it out on a schedule, and I like that. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a fun one. Was there something that you did, Bridget, in terms of shifting your mood or your emotion?
Well, yes, as you know, well, no, not everybody knows, I had surgery on my toe, so I'm not lapping right now in the pool, but so what I've been doing is going out on my patio and watching birds every morning to relax and kind of cater to my pain in my toe. I want these stitches out. I'll get them out this next week. Um,
Ah,
so yeah, I was out this morning breathing and doing a little meditation, and I've got these beautiful blue birds that come around all the time, blue and pink. And I've never seen these colored birds, but they're beautiful. So I'm just taking it in, and that's what I was sharing with David. The just going outside, breathing just changes the mood immensely. So it helps me to get on with my day. So I've been doing that every morning since I had this little surgery, and it makes it much better.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
went through
no,
your activity, and it was good.
how about,
yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
I was just going to mention, Mariana mentioned dancing. So Mariana, would you mind
Yeah.
talking about?
Great.
Yes, I meditate every morning, but that helps me set up my day. But the joy of dancing alone or my husband, it doesn't matter. I realize that every time I do it, I love it, but I don't do it as often. So I'm thinking that I'm going to do it every day, even if it's 15 minutes, doesn't have to be more, because that was part of my life. I went to the School of Ballet, contemporary dance school. So I did a lot of that parallel to psychology. But it's something that brings me joy, and I know it immediately when I start listening to the music and moving. But I need to do it daily. That's my commitment now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah.
Good. So I wanted to just kind of talk you guys through my challenge and what I have. These are the things I'm covering. Day 1 is why reconnecting to the brain is important. And day 2 is about neuroplasticity. And day 3 is about the process of rewiring. So the process of rewiring goes along with these cognitive behavioral aspects. So this is just one of them. I have 6 of them included in that one, so people can pick one that's going to work for them and practice that, and try maybe a different one every week or something, so that they get a chance to try some different techniques that might shift their mood or help make some new connections in the brain in terms of how that functions. And so I have a self-directed part that anyone can participate in for free. I do have a group one that's normally $49, but if you guys are interested in participating, you can use the half cap. I thought that was funny because I heard a half cap, half fiend, half cap. Oh, I need to check that, make sure that's active too, by the way. And that is available for half price. And then there's the link down there at the bottom to participate in that. And it has a community. I'm still working on that. This is a pretty new class for me, so I don't have a lot of this stuff built up, but the course is already there, so that part's already available. And then these are the dates that I'm going to be doing the group piece for. It's kind of hard to figure out. Just trying to figure out the best way of getting that into the calendar so people would get the calendar stuff for it. And it's a little hard to see, and you're supposed to choose 3 days in a row. But these are the ones that I have available in there right now in terms of dates and times for people to participate in them. Did you guys have any other questions for me on any of this information?
So what at these training events will be? Can you give us an idea of what those will be like?
Pretty much like what we did today.
Okay.
It's just it's a different topic each day, and then creating an opportunity for people to practice or discuss any of the things that we have with other people in the group. There's a community inside of the system that I have as well. So rather than doing it on Facebook or whatever, we're doing it inside of a more locked down community, so that people can interact with each other as well as during the presentations that we are doing on each of those 3 days. So it's about an hour and a half each day during the 3-day periods that we're going to be interacting with each other and practicing some of the skills that we have here. I don't know about you guys, but if you don't hold my feet to the fire, sometimes I'm like, I don't have time for that right now. I'm not gonna do it. If it's just a self-directed class, sometimes I have a hard time following through. So that's why I think this is a little bit more empowering, because people are more likely to follow through and do these and do things if you have a specific time and date and meeting and expectation and group support and all that stuff. All right. Well, cool.
Thank you.
David, did you want to talk about your presentation next month?
Thank you, Sherry. I left that YouTube, which is a little bit incoherent, I suppose, but that's basically because of my voice and my tardive spasms, which are the result of a psychotherapist or psychiatrist giving me psychotropic drugs and asking me to monitor myself. But Basically, the idea is that if we don't react to the things that we normally react to, I mean, reactions are pretty much unconscious, but there's fallout from our reactions, which we have the opportunity when we do react to become aware that we just reacted, and that can add to our awareness of how, what we're doing in the world and how we're doing it and what's motivating us. And as we become increasingly aware, and then if we allow that fallout rather than apologizing, we start reacting a little bit less. And by reacting less, we stop reinforcing all of the conditioning that's associated with our reaction. So we actually, we're dissolving unconscious conditioning. I mean, it just can't get any better than that. Of course, the problem with not reacting is you have to feel the feelings that you were reacting against. And some of those are pretty scary. So I think a lot of this approach that I'm talking about requires some hand-holding, and it requires counselors and therapists who have explored their dark side rather deeply so that they're not intimidated by the reactions of the people they're talking to. But there's what's neat about this too is as I react less, my perceptions change, my relationship to life changes, and I begin moving out of my box. I didn't even know I was in a box, but all of this conditioning and trauma that has been passed down from the beginning of time has created a box that kind of holds me in. Society keeps me in a box too, that I've just gotten used to being in. And all these hoops that basically keep me down, it's like you didn't jump through that hoop, you didn't jump through that hoop. And you become more conscious, more aware of these hoops. And at a certain, the more present I think a person becomes, the more they reach a point where they say, this me cannot do this anymore. A friend said, you want to play chess? And I said, boy, I haven't played chess in years. Yeah, let's play chess. We set up the pieces, and he was just so, competitive. And I just realized I don't want to do this to my brain. I do not want to put my brain through this. I said, I apologize. I don't want to play chess.
Never mind.
And, that's just kind of an example of the awareness that comes to one when they're present. And you become present by noticing that you're not present. You can't become present by trying to be present because you're not there yet. So anyway, that's all these dimensions are actually examples of stepping out of the box. You step out of the box of not being present. You step out of the box of not of facing your fear, of being controlled by fear, and on and on and on. And I think it's what society needs right now, so that we don't get manipulated. I was watching the TV at 9/11, and I could see this TV screen pointed at the Twin Towers. And I thought, well, that's kind of curious. Why is the TV pointed at the Twin Towers? And then a plane flies right into the middle of the TV screen. I thought, well, that's really thoughtful of whoever set up that TV uh, camera to catch the plane before as it crashed into the Twin Tower. And I just said, this is an inside job. And I just sat down. I mean, it just was like a real kick in the gut. I mean, it was instant. So anyway, I think humans are largely unconscious, and as we become more conscious, then our society will begin to take on some kind of meaningful shape rather than simply being scattered like a bunch of chickens in a cage-free farm. It's like, anyway,
Yeah.
I thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. And David's book's called Inner Space Traveler. So that's the one that he's just recently written. So pretty exciting stuff.
Thank you.
All right. So I think that takes care of what we have today. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Let me go ahead and just put my I'm going to put my regular email in here in the chat.
Thank you, Sherry, for sharing with us all your knowledge.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope that we got another tool you guys can put in your toolbox.
Thanks.
Thank you. Very
Thank you,
beneficial.
Sherry.
All right.
Thanks
Yeah,
for the training.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, Mariana, give me a second. Go ahead and stop the recording and I'll go get the babies.
Yeah.
And Dad,
Yeah.
Dad, you get to see your furry grandchildren.